After the explosion, investigators searched Brian's car. There, they found the handwritten instruction sheets addressed to the bomb hostage. The sentences dictated a sequence of actions: rob the bank, move to a specific point, retrieve a clue, find the key and code, and then release the device. Brian hadn't been lying. He had even retrieved the first clue amidst the chaos between leaving the bank and stopping in the parking lot. But when police traced the route to the next clue, they found something that shook them. One of the clues had been taken from its spot, deliberately removed by someone unknown. If this game was truly designed to save a compliant hostage, why would another hand remove one of the steps? That same night, federal agents searched Brian's home on Loveland Avenue. There were no signs of bomb making. The evidence seemed to confirm that he was not the one who built the device. 3 days after the incident, Robert Pinetti, a co worker of Brian's, died of what was ruled an accidental overdose. A few days later, investigators followed up on Brian's initial claim about four black men by searching an apartment. No charges were filed. The claim turned out to be false. Was it a lie forced upon Brian by his captors, or his own last-ditch effort to divert danger in his most desperate moments? We will never know for sure. From the thickening fog, one name rose to the surface: William A. Rothstein, the ex-fiancé of a woman named Marjorie Deal Armstrong. On September 13th, Rothstein was caught dumping over 1,000 pounds of debris at a landfill. 7 days later, he called 911 to report something far beyond debris. The body of James Roden, Marjorie's boyfriend, was stored in a freezer in his garage. He blamed Marjorie for the murder. The next day, Marjorie was arrested. A few days later, Rothstein was questioned about the last phone call Brian received on the day of the incident. He said he might have used the payphone from which the call was made. The word might was left hanging like a slightly ajar door, enough to guess but not enough to conclude. The following year, Marjorie, who had a history of bipolar disorder, was transferred for a long-term psychiatric evaluation, limiting investigators' access to her. At the end of July 2004, Rothstein died of cancer, taking with him answers that might have been needed to piece this story together. A few months later, in early 2005, Marjorie pleaded guilty but mentally ill to the third-degree murder of Roden. She was sentenced to 7 to 20 years in prison. But the Wells case was still far from over. In mid-July, Floyd A. Stockton Jr., Rothstein's roommate, stated that Rothstein and Marjorie were involved in the robbery and bomb plot due to financial pressure. In August and September, Kenneth E. Barnes, Marjorie's fishing buddy, said that before the incident, Marjorie had asked him to kill her own father so his inheritance wouldn't be wasted. In subsequent meetings in December, Barnes added a chilling detail. The day before the incident, August 27, 2003, there was a meeting attended by himself, Marjorie, Rothstein, Stockton, and Brian to review the plan. On the day of the incident, he admitted to having watched Brian through binoculars. Early the next year, investigators tested the consistency of the stories. When Barnes's statement was presented to Marjorie in February, she became angry and denied ever being with Barnes on those dates, even accusing Rothstein of setting her up. 2 days later, when Marjorie's denial was relayed to Barnes, Barnes called her a liar. Barnes's house was searched in March and May for bomb components and other possibly related items. That same May, the eighth and final interview with Marjorie was held. With her lawyer, she led investigators along the route she claimed to have taken on the day Brian died, as if the map in her head could keep the narrative from falling apart. 2 years after the explosion, the grand jury's term was nearing its end. On July 9, 2007, federal indictments were handed down against Marjorie Deal Armstrong and Kenneth Barnes for armed bank robbery, conspiracy, and use of a destructive device in a crime of violence. Brian Wells and William Rothstein were named as unindicted co-conspirators. Brian for his alleged limited involvement in the initial planning, Rothstein because he was deceased. 2 days later, the indictment was unsealed. Floyd Stockton was granted immunity in exchange for his testimony. The legal process moved forward. In late July 2008, a judge declared Marjorie not competent to stand trial and ordered further evaluation. In early September, Barnes pleaded guilty to conspiracy and use of a destructive device, and in December he was sentenced to 45 years in prison, also agreeing to testify against Marjorie. A year later, on September 8, 2009, the court declared Marjorie competent to stand trial. In 2010, a cancerous lump was removed from her neck, and she was then diagnosed with glandular cancer that had originated in her breast. A doctor's report mentioned a limited life expectancy, but the legal process did not stop. Jury selection began on October 12th. On November 1st, after 11 and a half hours of deliberation, the jury found Marjorie guilty on all counts. And on February 28, 2011, the sentence was delivered. Life plus 30 years, with no chance of parole in the federal system. Throughout that long path, one question never truly went silent. Who really was Brian Wells in the middle of this vortex? For investigators, there were indications he knew about part of the plan, at least in the early stages. For his family, he was a victim who was trapped and manipulated, someone who might have been convinced that the device around his neck was just a fake.